Hello, I'm Robert Paris, President of Mylan Leadership International. The theme of today's video is to make sure you take control of your brain and don't let the hidden thoughts embedded in your brain control you. There's a brilliant book called Positive Intelligence, and the author's name is Shirzad Chamine. And he identifies 10 saboteurs that reside within our brain that work against our best interest. So I'd like to briefly describe the 10 saboteurs. And as you're listening to this, I'd like you to decide which one of these apply to you and which one of these will you commit to getting rid of. Not just one, you might want to get rid of several of them. The master saboteur is called the judge. And we have it in all of us, based on past traumas in our life, and based on the fact that the brain tends to be negative, we tend to judge ourselves negatively, others negatively, and circumstances negatively. Is that you? The next saboteur is called the avoider, and that's the individual who avoids conflict. Rather than address conflict head on and go for a win-win situation, that person tells him or herself and the other person, let's just avoid it and walk away. The problem, as we know, that doesn't solve the problem, or at least the source of what the problem is. The third saboteur is called the controller, and that's the person that has to be in control of everything. And while that might produce dividends in the short term, that's not going to work in the long term because people simply don't want to go along with someone who is trying to control them on a longer term basis. The fourth saboteur is called the hyperachiever. And that's the individual who just constantly is looking for projects and tries to achieve, get recognition. And again, after a while, that becomes quite shallow because when you achieve something, dopamine is released in the brain, but it becomes short-lived and becomes a substitute for developing relationships and developing trust with other people. The fifth saboteur is called the hyper-rational individual who uses logic and facts to analyze situations, even feelings. But instead of focusing on developing relationships and being in touch with his or her feelings and the other person's feelings, everything is rationalized away. And of course, we know the brain is highly emotional. That simply doesn't work. The next saboteur is called the hypervigilant individual. And this person is basically just fears that everything is always going to go wrong. This is the pessimist. The next thing that's going to happen in life is going to be a disaster. And unfortunately, leads his or her life this way and will sabotage that individual from ever fulfilling his life's destiny. Then the next saboteur is called the pleaser. This is the individual who's always trying to please others, but not really please themselves. And when you're always trying to please others, you're not really focused in on yourself and your needs, and you're never going to be fulfilled on a longer-term basis. The next saboteur is called the restless individual. And the restless individual is never satisfied with taking a deep breath and just relaxing, is always going from one activity to another, and to another. And again, the issue is the focus is on the activities. It's not on the person's needs, or nor is it on the other person's needs. So again, is that a saboteur that you can relate to? The second to last saboteur is called the stickler. And this is the perfectionist. This is someone who has a perfect world, who wants to come across as being perfect to be accepted by other people. But we know it's not perfection that does that because, first of all, perfection isn't possible. And second of all, it's the relationship and trust that leads to much more fulfillment for that individual. And finally, the last saboteur is called being the victim. And this is the martyr. It's the person that goes through life of basically saying, I'm a victim. Life dealt me a bad hand. And again, the problem is you get so caught up in this deception that you can never be self-fulfilled. But other people read right through that and don't want to be with people who are victims or martyrs. So hopefully, in describing these 10 saboteurs, some of them you were able to relate to. And the advice is get in touch with your saboteurs, identify them. That is the most important thing you could do. Once you identify, then commit to getting rid of that saboteur by using your rational brain to overcome the hidden stories that you indeed become the person you were meant to be to fulfill your life's destiny. Thank you, and be safe and be healthy.